First up, the group of 7 leaders have arrived in southern Italy to discuss issues dominating the world at the moment. The Ukraine and the Israel-Hamas war are expected to take center stage during the scheduled 3 days of talks. Now, in the latest, the Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni joined the leaders for a group photo shoot ahead of the summit. Meloni could be seen flanked by Emmanuel Macron and Joe Biden in the group photo lineup. The Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is also expected to reach Italy for his 5th consecutive participation at the summit of the world's most economically advanced nations later today.
We will of course talk about ongoing crises, starting with Ukraine and the Middle East. We will build on the work of the Japanese presidency, advancing on the need to create robust and controllable supply chains on what is probably the most complex challenge of our time, which is the advent of generative artificial intelligence clearly, with the need to seize its opportunities while governing its risks.
Now, there have been multiple substantial developments leading up to the meeting. To begin with, on the eve of the summit, the US has expanded its sanctions on Russia. They were announced just as the US President Joe Biden was leaving for Italy. Biden is also planning a push for frozen Russian assets to help rebuild Ukraine. G7 leaders have agreed to lend Ukraine $50 billion backed by these frozen assets. Not only this, Biden and Zelensky are set to sign a 10-year US-Ukraine security deal at the summit. Meanwhile, UK's Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is also set to announce up to $309 million in support for Ukraine's energy and humanitarian needs. Also expected to be on the agenda at the G7 meeting are the war in Gaza, the migration, economic security issues, and artificial intelligence. Separately, Pope Francis is set to become the first pontiff to attend a G7 summit. He will be addressing the subject of artificial intelligence at the conference. He has previously called for global regulation of AI, warning of its dangers to ethics and human rights. The summit, however, comes with its own uncertainties as many leaders, including Rishi Sunak, Emmanuel Macron and Joe Biden, face electoral challenges back home. Sunak is down in the polls ahead of the general elections next month. Macron is also set to face voters after he called snap parliamentary elections following a resounding loss in the European elections. The Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and the US President Joe Biden similarly face a tough battle the next time voters head to polls. And for more on this, on the G7 meet, we're now joined by Valentina Di Donato, reporting for WION from Bari in Italy. And Valentino, thanks very much indeed for talking to us this evening. What is the mood like in G7 ahead of when the leaders meet to discuss some serious issues, including the war in Ukraine, in Gaza, and of course all of this coming in the backdrop of some heavy losses and swing to the right in Europe?
Absolutely. As you can see, I'm here in Bari and we're teeming with tourists. This is a touristic destination, and that is part of why Giorgia Meloni, the Italian Prime Minister, has chosen this region as the place to host some of the world's most powerful leaders. And it is a region that the sense on the ground is that they're happy. They're happy that these leaders are here. It's a point of pride. And their hope is that the name of the region continues to bring more tourism, money. And Meloni also decided to bring leaders here, in part because during the pandemic, the EU was able to give the region a lot of money. And so I think she wants to also showcase how that money, the EU funds, are being put to use. A lot has been built, and the luxury hotel where all of these leaders are staying, it's sort of a representation of what that is. And despite all of this, we're on the backdrop of an incredible win for the extreme right with Giorgia Meloni, and she is basking in this moment.
Right, Valentino, but also, I mean, if we talk about the G7, what are some of the key issues that are likely to be discussed at this meet?
At this meeting, Ukraine is the core of the meeting. Ukraine and the crisis in Gaza with Israel. Obviously, how those funds regarding Ukraine will be used for frozen assets, Russian assets, is a big point of contention. Obviously, Joe Biden has pushed for how to use these, and this is also coming on the heels of an election, because if Biden does not win again, things could drastically change on how Ukraine is handled in the West.
Right, Valentina, thanks very much indeed for joining us there with the very latest. For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.